Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is your special guest host, Gwyneth Giangrande. This episode is part of a mini-series of the EdUp Experience, where I talk to education leaders about student wellness. Today, I am pleased to welcome my special guest, Mary Kay Connerton. Ms. Connerton is the health and wellness teacher for Annapolis High School and was recently named Maryland Teacher of the Year. She's a member of the Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County, and her commitment to student wellness is a passion she is sharing throughout her county and in conversations with elected leaders and decision makers. She created a wellness program to assist the school community with living healthfully, earning the Wellness School of Distinction Award. She co-leads the trauma team, programs that focus on healing and connecting communities, and pioneered the first yoga program and social emotional learning or wellness curriculum for 25,000 students. Ms. Connerton received the 2020 SHAPE Society of Health and Physical Educators Friend Award and earned a master's in special education and a bachelor's in childhood education from SUNY Cortland. So welcome, Ms. Connerton, and congratulations. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
Why don't you start off introducing how you started in the field of teaching and your involvement with health and wellness?
From the moment I can remember, I really always wanted to be a teacher and a mom, and now I am serving as both, which is wonderful. And as I went through my journey, at first I thought I wanted to be a dance teacher or an art teacher. And I kind of fell into the world of special education. And from that lens, I began realizing how much my students needed the ability to self-regulate and to really take their whole self into account. And so with the simultaneous knowledge and learning of becoming a yoga teacher, I started weaving the two worlds together.
That's great, especially, my website focuses
Yeah.
on the arts, and you said you're a dance teacher. I'm a dancer. I dance outside of school, and I've danced for many years. So what challenges did you face while implementing some of these programs, and what successes have you observed at Annapolis High School?
Well, I think for me, the biggest struggle has been getting the buy-in from people at first, especially fellow colleagues. And I totally understand it, but we want to be having our children learning what we're teaching them, right? So it's always driven by the standards and the curriculum. And so lots of times I know that people get fearful from taking time out of the lesson to put towards anything else but the content. And what I've seen from just my data collection and my experience and trying to do this in a grassroots motion over the course of the past 14 years is that it gives more quality instruction when we take a time to pause and check in with our mental well-being, with our whole self, when we give ourselves that opportunity to rest, and it really gives us the quality over quantity. So for example, one of my favorite statistics that I have from my data collection is in 2020, 2021, my colleague and I did a little case study. And so I was paired with his AP physics class and I taught meditation to them.
Oh, that's
And
great.
then, yeah. So they received meditation every day. And then his class that did not, they just went about with the general teaching that he was offering. And the class with meditation, they scored 10% higher than the other class,
Wow.
20% higher than the county average, and 3 times higher than the global average, and the highest scoring of minority females. So it
Wow.
really demonstrates the power behind the practice.
That's a really interesting statistic because I know for myself, I tend to get very stressed out. And so, what I've been doing in the past couple of years more recently is trying to meditate, and it actually has helped a lot. And we even have something at my school called the Spacio. And it's just a moment where you take some time for meditation. And so they ring a gong over the loudspeaker. And then so you just take like 2 minutes every morning to just like take a breath and just remind yourself what you're grateful for. And
I
it's
love
it's
that.
really it's really helpful because I think high school can be so stressful and tests and exams and that pressure to do well too. So I think meditation is really important.
Absolutely, Gwyneth. And when I first heard about your mission and saw your website and this wonderful podcast, I was feeling so connected to you because in high school, for me, similarly, I carried a lot of anxiety and stress. And I wished I learned yoga and meditation in those years. I came to learn it in college and my early adult years, and I just find it so valuable. So for me, it's just so personal because high school is really hard. And there's lots of shifts and changes and a lot of growing. And so it's really necessary to make sure that everyone is healthy in their whole self.
I completely agree. And I think it just high schoolers, I think we tend to decompress with technology by going on our
Right.
phones, going on TikTok, any kind of social media. And what I've been trying to do recently is after I'm finished with my homework, I do not touch my phone. I just get ready for bed and then I just go to sleep. And then I kind of just let myself fall into that sleep because I mean, there's been so many studies about blue light stimulating your
Mhm.
brain, affecting your sleep. And I think it's really important for high schoolers to realize that some of the ways that we use to cope with stress or manage stress is actually making it worse sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I loved on your site how you were giving shout outs to certain books that you were reading, you
Yes,
know?
I love reading.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, that the realm of wellness is really what it boils down to is what makes you feel good, right? So reading can be a form of wellness and of taking that time, that space. And I think too, what a lot of people overlook for high schoolers, having had the experience of teaching at the elementary, middle, high, and college level, is that the supports are really intricately needed because oftentimes the look is, oh, well, they're young adults and yet the support still needs to be there. So something that I love about the programming that I've been able to instill is we have wellness groups
That's great.
that meet. Yeah, so I'm paired up with a school therapist or school counselor, and we have groups for teen moms and grief and substance abuse and anxiety, and it's been really wonderful to kind of see how there's this mold of that therapeutic standpoint and then the actual motion and movement of what wellness means, from yoga to exploring other realms of it.
Yeah. And how accessible are these mental health services to all students? So even those who face barriers due to location, financial constraints, or stigma, or how do mental health services address like even diverse cultural and background needs of student populations?
So I think that's something where for schools, education across the board, we need to do better. The wellness program that I'm running is only offered at Annapolis High School.
Hmm.
Um, I'm the only position of as a wellness coordinator in the district, and we have a very, very, very large district. So I hope that this can expand to countywide and beyond, because ultimately the need for the various stories that each child brings, right? It can't always just fall on a teacher. It needs to come from like everywhere. And I know the expression is so frequently used, it takes a village, but it's so true. So we need to be able to like connect with different providers and community members and student services and therapists to kind of have this team effort so that we can really address the needs no matter what the gender, the background, the socioeconomic cases, so that it's accessible for all.
I think even with technology too, that has helped. I think there's two sides of it. I think
Yeah.
technology, it's really helped by students finding resources and people to connect to. as a mental health resource. And there's the other side of it that we now have unique mental health challenges that high school students face because we are in such a digital age and we are very connected to our phones and we're connected online. But I do think one thing that is great about it is that a lot of people now do therapy sessions over Zoom, over the phone. So I think there's two very different sides of it that it can be really helpful. And at the same time, it can almost be very detrimental too.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like it's almost a need for education surrounding that to bring the awareness, because I think that's ultimately what we need to do, is to bring awareness to ourselves, to what we're giving ourselves, whether it's, the food, the drink, the screen, whatever it may be, right? Because we're constantly being stimulated, right? In our society, it's so fast paced, and the culture that we have, and then the fact, like, because you kind of referenced too the different types of needs across backgrounds, right? And also different cultures too. They may look at wellness in a different light than other groups, So
Something interesting that my school started that I really love is that we now have peer support groups for certain diverse and cultural backgrounds. And so it's a safe space where anybody who identifies with that background or with that identity, they now have a safe space at school. They meet and they can talk about it. And it is a very safe space for everyone to just kind of share their history, their background, how they're feeling. And I think that's really important. And I really like that at my school. And I just wish that it kind of became more popular throughout high schools in the US. I think over the past couple of years it has, because I think it's really different when you're surrounded by people who are like you, who understand your background, who understand your heritage, who understand your day to day. And so that's something that I really like.
that is wonderful. Yeah, and I find like these groups that I've referenced that we're doing at the high school, and it kind of flows with what you just said. They oftentimes, my students will say, I didn't realize that so and so had a similar situation, or I don't feel so lonely, because you have that connection, and that's so important.
I think what's really comforting is knowing that somebody else is going through the same things you are. I mean, even with college applications, like that stress, managing that stress, it feels better to know that, hey, almost every other senior in America, in the world, is going through the same thing. They're going through the same stress. I think just having that in mind, knowing that everyone else is going through the same thing, it's comforting to know that.
It is. It totally is.
Even peer support in promoting mental health among high school students. It's become more popular over the past couple years, and I think it's really important. And how do you believe a teacher's role extends into the realm of student mental health and wellness?
I think it has a huge role. And I think there needs more support for teachers in that role. For me, becoming a teacher, the book Matilda.
Yeah.
Okay, so I always thought when I was little that I wanted to be like Miss Honey. And I thought this picture of teaching was going to be a certain way, right? And after all of my studies, right, from my undergrad to my graduate program to then my administration program, I never learned about how do you cope with when a student is killed, or a student takes their own life, or you have violence in your classroom, or children of poverty that are homeless, or dealing with children who are struggling with their own sexual identity, right? Like, there's all these different things that come with teaching that I don't think anyone can ever really be prepared for in that sense. And so I think teachers have such an incredible privilege and honor and responsibility to be such a grounding role in a student's mental health, right? They can technically save a life. I don't mean that to be in a dramatic sense, but you know, sometimes such a small act of kindness or that connection with the teacher can do more than what you think in that moment. And I just think that teachers can really make that shift of supporting the whole student and wellness, and they need to be supported to do that.
I completely agree. Sometimes high schoolers or students in general see their teachers more than they see their own parents.
Mhm.
And whether that's because their parents work or they're divorced or they just don't see their parents, like you are at school typically from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. when your classes end, and then you have extracurricular activities if you participate in those. And I think a teacher being able to see the way a student is behaving, see a decline in their participation in class or decline in their academic performance. And I think teachers can see that more so sometimes than parents. And I'm not saying in a way that parents aren't paying attention to their kids. I just think teachers have a different advantage to seeing how their student will act in a different way, and kind of if there's a change, if there's a dramatic change, if you think that they may need to reach out to somebody to access a mental health resource. And I think a lot of the time teachers are worried that they're going to overstep their boundaries. I think it's okay. It would just feel comforting to know that somebody is noticing, that somebody wants me to find those resources.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think too, with mental health, safety is the number one thing, right? And so, as teachers being like mandated reporters, like you were just saying, they get to see so much because of just the time, right? And the consistency. So, yeah, I definitely did not expect the world of teaching to be what it is, but it has brought incredible gifts into my life.
I know we have to wrap up soon, but do you have any final advice for students, for teachers, for people in higher education that you kind of want to leave off with?
I would just say, I think, our my motto, or the wellness program's motto, I should say, is wellness is the thread that unites us. And I think ultimately, kind of what I was saying before, that wellness is just what makes you feel good, right? So in a healthy way. So just really tapping into that for your own being and knowing that by doing that for you, that's going to be that thread that connects us all to one another and to be able to care for others and our environment and the
Yeah,
world.
great. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Gwyneth.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Please visit my website, thezenstudent.com. Have a great day.